Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a supernatural horror film, AIYAI, Wrathful Soul. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. In the opening scenes, the boss of the cemetery goes to his workplace, where he is greeted by an agent. The boss asks what happened, but the agent says he cannot reveal anything. In the process, a young man named Karan is taken outside and checked out by a doctor. Soon after, the detective meets the boss and asks him a couple of questions. He reveals that he has hired Karan to take care of general maintenance at the cemetery. The scene shifts a few days earlier, when the assistant working for the boss brings Karan to the cemetery. The assistant takes him to his office and has him complete a form. He then gives him a tour of the building, and Karan asks what his salary will be. The assistant avoids the topic and suggests that he talk to the boss about it. He then warns Karan not to let strangers inside and to mark a form each time he goes in and out. Then the interviewer shows him the crematorium, and Karan has to take care of its maintenance. Later, the assistant takes Karan to the church, where he meets the boss. The boss is attending the ceremonies of a dead person, after which they will have to take care of the body. Karan says that he is happy to work here and is looking forward to starting. One day, Karan is on his way home, and under the bridge he's walking on, a criminal beats up a junkie, one of his drug dealers, for losing his product. The junkie claims to have lost the money, and the criminal continues to torture her. The junkie says she has a potential customer for tomorrow and promises to return the money. A henchman checks to see if she is okay and gives her money to buy food. The next morning, Karan rides his bike to work and greets his stony co-worker named Stony, who doesn't seem friendly at all. Karan cleans the crematorium, sweeps the church floors, and does general cleaning. Later, he brings a grave to the cemetery and asks Stony where to put it, but he doesn't talk to Karan. Nevertheless, Karan offers to help him dig, and Stony speaks to him for the first time. In the next scene, the junkie takes the money from selling the drugs, but she gives the money to a homeless man. She tells him not to tell anyone and promises to return tomorrow. At the end of the work week, the staff relaxes with a cold beer. Meanwhile, Stony stays outside the building and drinks the beer alone. The assistant says Stony is kind of weird and has never been inside the building, but no one knows why. When the assistant offers Karan some beer, he says he does not drink alcohol. The assistant, now drunk, gets irritated and arrogantly states that he is his supervisor and Karan must follow his orders. Karan continues to refuse, and the assistant hits him in the face. Luckily, the boss tells the assistant to calm down and be nicer. Karan goes outside to return home, and the boss follows him to apologize for the assistant's behavior. The boss says that he's actually a good man, but under the influence of alcohol, he cannot control himself. As Karan walks home, the criminal beats the junkie because she has lost the money once again. As he continues to beat her, Karan overhears them and intervenes to defend the junkie. Karan punches the criminal and knocks him to the ground, but the henchman steps in and pushes Karan. However, Karan pounces on the henchman and hits him in the face repeatedly. Junkie tries to run away, but the criminal stops her, after which he returns to Karan and beats him severely along with the henchman. Junkie runs away, and the two start following her, after turning Karan into a ball of blood. The scene shifts to a month ago, when Karan was working in a restaurant. While taking out the trash, he meets his father, the exact homeless man to whom Junkie gave her money as shown earlier. Meanwhile, the henchman is watching them from afar. Later that evening, as Karan is washing dishes, he hears someone knocking on the door. The criminal and his henchman go inside looking for food and act aggressively. Karan tries to chase them away, but they do not listen to him. Soon after, the owner of the restaurant arrives, and a fight breaks out. Together, Karan and the owner manage to chase the two thugs away. The next day, Karan lost his job at the restaurant and had no money left to pay his rent, but fortunately, his friend helped him out. The scene returns to the present, and when Karan goes to work, he finds the door locked. Stony arrives and gives him the keys to get in. As he checks the register, a dark shadow passes by him, but Karan doesn't notice it. He then finds a coffin with ashes in it. He goes to the second floor and finds a mess and ashes everywhere. Karan checks the assistant's office, but doesn't find him there. When he calls him on the phone, he doesn't answer. He then gets ready to get to work, and after he goes outside, a chair moves by itself. Karan then goes to the crematorium and notices footprints, but he doesn't ask too many questions and washes the floor. When he tries to turn on the crematorium, it doesn't work. Karan calls the assistant once again and reveals to him the situation in the building and the non-functioning crematorium. Karan suspects that someone has broken in at night and suggests calling the police, but the assistant says there is no need and adds that he will arrive soon. The assistant finds Karan in his office and tells him not to touch anything. He then orders him to go clean the downstairs while he repairs the crematorium. After Kiran finishes cleaning, he hears voices in a dark room. But when he goes to check, he finds no one. Then he walks away, and the door suddenly closes by itself. The assistant tries to repair the crematorium, but the light bulb breaks. He turns on a flashlight and witnesses supernatural events. The crematorium opens by itself, and then objects hang in the air. At one point, a terrifying skull appears behind him, but when the assistant turns around, it disappears into thin air. Suddenly, a supernatural force starts throwing the objects around the room. Soon after, the crematorium turns on, and the assistant walks over to it and opens it. Kiran hears him scream and runs to his aid. He finds the assistant in flames, but he's so terrified that he remains motionless. Later, the police, ambulance, and boss arrive, but Kiran has not yet recovered from the trauma he has experienced. The police take the boss to the police station for questioning. They show him the watch found in the crematorium room, and he realizes that it is the assistant's. The boss claims that the assistant shouldn't have been there because he wasn't supposed to work that day. Later, the police release him as they don't have any evidence against him. That evening, Kiran has dinner with his girlfriend and a close friend, but he is still in a state of shock about what happened that day. At one point, he hallucinates and sees worms on his plate. Frightened, he hits the plate and collapses on the floor. That night, Kiran cannot fall asleep and keeps staring at the window. His girlfriend tries to comfort him, using words first and muscles later to help him get into bed. She has to go back to college, but she's extremely worried about him. Kiran's friend comforts her and promises to take care of him. That night, thick smoke flows under Kiran's bed, and strange things happen to him. At one point, he stops and his eyes change color, suggesting that he's possessed by a supernatural entity. Kiran gets out of bed and starts walking around the room. He then walks outside and runs naked into the middle of the street. As he steps off a bridge, he notices the criminal who had beaten him a few days ago. The criminal meets his henchman and gives him money, while Kiran approaches them from behind. He then pounces on the criminal and throws a hard punch at the henchman that knocked him out earlier. The criminal pulls out a knife, but Kiran knocks him to the ground easily. Then Kiran starts running away as the criminal chases him, arriving at the cemetery. Meanwhile, inside the building, we discover that supernatural forces are creating the mess all around. In one particular scene, a skeleton's hand turns to ashes and falls to the ground. Here is the reason why Kiran found ashes all over the building. Most likely, the ashes derive from the ghosts that haunt this place. The criminal continues to search for Kiran in the cemetery, and at the same time, a ghost hides behind a grave. The ghost grabs the criminal by the legs and drags him, then kills him without mercy. In the next scene, the lifeless criminal is hanging from a tree branch. The next morning, Kiran is found lying on the floor of the house, soiled with mud. His girlfriend comes in and tries to figure out what happened to him. She then realizes that Kiran is as cold as ice and goes to prepare a tub of hot water. Later, two detectives knock on the door and ask to speak to Kiran, but the girlfriend says she has not seen him around. The detectives then reveal the criminal's death at the cemetery and emphasize the importance of asking Kiran a few questions. The detectives try to enter, but she stops them, saying that the owner of the house would not let them in. As a result, they ask her to call them if she finds Kiran, and they leave. Just then, she notices water coming out of the bathroom and finds Kiran completely submerged in water. She pulls him out and realizes that he's not breathing. She starts to shake him desperately, and Kiran wakes up confused. He looks around, frightened, and begins to convulse. She hugs him and tries to calm him down as he continues to shake. Later, the girlfriend takes him to the store where his friend works because the detectives will eventually return with a warrant. Suddenly, Kiran wakes up with those demonic eyes and leaves the store to follow a specific car. In the next scene, we see the car parking outside a house, and we find out that it belongs to the boss. Suddenly, the henchman surprises him from behind and demands the money he owes him. Apparently, the boss and the criminal have an agreement that we are not yet aware of, but it will soon be revealed. The boss refuses to give him the money, and the henchman threatens to go to the police. However, the boss doesn't care because no one will believe him. The boss then enters the house and has 2 glasses of whiskey. When he goes to the balcony, he notices Kiran standing outside his house. The boss goes outside, and Kiran surprises him from behind. The scene suddenly shifts to Kiran driving a car to the cemetery. Once he arrives at the destination, he pulls the boss out of the car and starts beating him. Subsequently, Kiran drags the boss to the crematorium. He wakes up and blames Kiran for killing the assistant. Kiran kicks him in the face and then leans against the wall. The boss wakes up again and sees Kiran slowly crawling toward him as he's drooling. The boss asks in terror what he needs, but then Kiran stops and lies down on the floor. He begins to convulse, but pounces on the boss again. Shortly after, the crematorium lights up as the boss screams in terror. The scene flashes back to a few days ago. The assistant and the boss are driving home drunk. Meanwhile, the criminal is again beating the same junkie along the road. The assistant tries to light a cigarette while driving and accidentally bumps into the junkie. The criminal pulls them out of the car and threatens to call the police for their drunk driving. In the process, the henchman worries about the junkie and brings her shoes that she dropped due to the impact. The boss and the assistant pull out their wallets, hoping to shut up the criminal's mouth with money. But the criminal is still not satisfied, so he offers them a deal. The criminal tells them to get rid of the junkie's body and meet tomorrow to give him the money. He points out that she is just one of his drug dealers, so they are lucky because no one will come looking for her. Desperate, the two drunkards accept the deal and load Junkie's body into their pickup truck. The two take the junkie to the crematorium room, intending to burn the body, but she lets out a groan, and the two realize the junkie is still alive. The assistant says they must take her to the hospital, but the boss says they will be arrested for the accident if they do, so they must get rid of her. They put the body in the crematorium, burning her alive. The assistant realizes that they are doing a horrible thing and tries to get her out, but it is too late. Here the scene shifts back to the present when the boss is now trapped in the crematorium room. At this point, it is clear that Junkie's ghost has returned to avenge her murderers and is using Karan's body to do so. The junkie takes the boss' greasy head and plucks it off of him to seek her revenge. In the process, Karan's friend arrives at the cemetery to look for him. At that moment, the police also arrive and find the boss' car. Karan comes out finally free and collapses on the ground as the officers point their guns at him. A few days later, Karan, his girlfriend, and his friend drive past the cemetery and he sees the junkie's ghost. In the next scene, it's revealed that Karan actually did not survive, and the junkie's ghost also took his soul after she got her revenge. Karan's ashes rest beside his girlfriend as she weeps. In the final scene, we learn that the only survivor of revenge is the henchman. The junkie spared his life because he actually cared about her, and the film shows this in several scenes. It's shown that he pretended to beat her up just to please the criminal. As for Karan, he is just a poor young guy who was at the wrong place at the wrong time. He was just an honest guy looking for a job to pay for his studies, but fate had other plans for him. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.